Good morning, everybody. It's Ben Jones. I'm back in my coffee workshop. I had a nice little vacation, and then I had a handful of Monday and Friday appointments that have kept me out of the routine, getting back in the routine. But here we are. Happy Friday. It is the 16th day of October already. We're getting ready for that autumn weather coming up, and I thought, as things start to return to that cozy, we're going back into comfort soup season. We're going back into sweatshirts all day and sweaters. We needed a nice, good way to brew coffee that was very comfortable. And for me, the French press is this is like comfort food when it comes to coffee. The French press was the first coffee that really kind of changed my world was brewed on a French press. And to me, the Bodum Chambord is the only French press that you need. There are a lot of other styles out there. I believe that this one is worth the little extra money that you spend. It has that classic look with the chromed and shiny metals there. There's a few points about the Chambord that I really like. One is the framework on here makes it real easy to dose your coffee and your water. I'm going to be using 51 grams of coffee in here today, but if I didn't have my scale, I could still do it. A general rule with any French press, if you look at it, ground coffee should go just to where the bottom of that filter settles in at. That's, at least on this one, that's the perfect dose. If we grabbed another type of French press, this is an old Hario French press. The filter goes all the way to the bottom, so that would be an incredibly weak cup of coffee. So we're not going to do that with this one. But on a Chambord, and since this is the most copied French press, if you have that little gap, typically that's the best. But on this one, I will guarantee you an amazing cup of French press coffee. So, ground coffee just below the filter, and it just so happens that the mount for the handle is close enough to where our filter sits. And then if we extend the plunger, where the filter sits now at the top, that is going to be our water dose, essentially. And if for the observant viewers, that's hitting just above this collar. So, ground coffee to here, hot water to there. We have room to put our plunger in. That's right. Let's make a cup of coffee. After I talk about cleaning, though, we're going to talk 2 minutes about cleaning and then go into the brewing. One of the reasons I moved away from French press is just because I'm lazy, and out here in the workshop I don't have running water, so to clean a French press is a little more of a involved process and a little more water intensive. So you definitely want to make sure that after your brewing that you dump out all your grounds, give it a good rinse, but then also the screen, the filter needs to be cleaned. You can rinse it, and if you go about a week of just rinsing, you're going to be okay. But if you unscrew it, it'll also come apart into its constituent components. Screen support, mesh screen, and then the more sturdy with the wire rim. Take those apart, give that all a really good rinse. These are dishwasher safe if you want to toss the metal and glass into the dishwasher. I tend to not like to put the plastics into the dishwasher, but that's just personal preference. So let's go ahead and brew a cup of coffee. It's going to set my Chambord there, and my water is nice and hot, heated up to a little over 200 degrees. If you don't have the thermometer on your kettle, let your water boil, pull it off the stovetop, and give it a good 20 to 45 seconds. I just like to give this a little pre-rinse and a little heat up, especially since we're out here in the workshop where it's a little bit chillier. The kitchen in the morning, if you haven't had the heater running at night, give it a good little warm up. That way the cold doesn't steal your heat from the water. 51 grams of freshly ground coffee. Chunky is great. You want to have like good, visible, large chunks of coffee in there, often likened to coarse ground salt. Fair enough. The idea is that you want to have a big enough particle size so that it doesn't jam the screen. Another benefit of large particle size, we can really expand our brew time. We recommend a 4-minute steep and then the press, but when you're going with really chunky coarse, especially in a full immersion style brewer, a little extra time isn't going to be so bad. Now, I'm going to take my timer and just start it. I'm just going to add my water. Now I'm adding with a nice little gravity drop, really letting it kind of drop down. That way it gets a good stir. And here is the controversial topic of the bloom. Some people say bloom your French press. Doesn't really matter because, as you notice, no water's dripping out the bottom of our press pot. So there's no need to allow water to soak in to prime the grounds. I do like to give a little stir though, just to make sure everything gets nice and wet. Know that the more you shake it, the more you stir it, the faster flavors are going to come out. And let's just go and bring this back up now to the bottom of the stainless steel frame. One of the benefits of bloom would be if you have really fresh coffee that's very gassy, it's going to expand in here, and we want to make sure we leave some room for our filter. So if you let that gas escape, break that crust, you can then take your plunger and just set it on top. And I do like to set my plunger on top with the plunger filter at the top so that it just traps the heat and we have a more stable and consistent temperature. Beauty of the French press really is that there's something unique about coffee brewed without a lot of movement. I did a lot of aggressive stirring and very aggressive pouring, and that was a lot of movement. There's something really unique, and you get a special sweetness and a very mild, like there's a trait that's so unique to what we call full immersion, where the coffee is completely immersed in the water, and it's not moving through, where if we were using classic bee house, where we have the filter up here and it drips down into the mug, that water's always moving through. Gives you a great cup of coffee. There's something very unique that happens when it just sits and steeps without flowing. So as you're playing with your French press at home, go ahead and try to see what happens if you do real aggressive stirring. If you do some aggressive pour, get a lot of movement initially, but then also see what happens if you're nice and gentle in your introduction of water, minimal stirring, just to be sure that all the clumps, that there are no clumps of dry coffees setting in there. I think you'll find two very different, equally delicious cups of coffee. It's pretty cool. I've missed this. I haven't done this in a long time, so we're gonna see what comes of it. Typical brew on a French press, like I said, is 4 minutes. As you let the water steep with the coffee longer, we tend to pull out some of the more harsh flavors. You get the things that taste of burnt matches, a little rubbing alcohol astringency, poorly swallowed medicine pills. So just take a Tylenol or an aspirin and let it dissolve on your tongue a little bit. We can get some of those flavors. We don't want those flavors. So by cutting off the steep time before it goes too long, it's like taking biscuits or cookies out of the oven before they've baked to a burnt crisp. I do have some friends, and I have on multiple occasions brewed this for 15 to 18 minutes. And if your coffee is really chunky and coarse, that is still going to give you a delicious cup of coffee. The danger of oversteeping on full immersion is greatly reduced compared to the danger of oversteeping and over extracting on any type of drip through measurement or drip through a brewer. So that's just really fun. We're just now over 4 minutes on here, and I'm just going to put a little more water in there just for good measure, just break up that crust. All right, and then the plunge itself, there's some different thoughts on it. Some new, some new thought on the French press plunge is don't bother plunging it. Some say just go ahead and make sure that your filter bit is aligned here, and then you can just pour through that, and that will work sufficiently well. Benefit of plunging is that you can isolate the grounds to the bottom. It's a good happy cup of coffee. I like to plunge it just because that's what I've always done. When you do the plunge, it's just a nice, easy pressure going down. If you find that you have to force it, let's go back to our grinder on the next one and make it a little more coarse. There shouldn't be any real force required. Just a nice, easy press. And then from here, we can just pour and drink. That metal screen doesn't hold back any of the oils, it doesn't catch the fine particles, and you can really see that even as it's pouring into your mug. You can see that little tiny bits of, looks like the foamy stuff on top of here. That's just all that texture in the cup. So this is texture-wise vastly different from my daily cup of coffee. My normal cup of coffee is 2 or 3 AeroPress paper filters, a Melita filter, a Chemex filter. All those paper filters pull out all of this fantastic texture. The coffee I chose today, not Columbia Las Brisas. I opted for the Whirling Dervish, which is our single origin blend. It's coffee from one farm, roasted 2 different ways, and then blended together. I find that if you're going with something like the French press, if I'm going to get that body in the coffee, I want to have a nice, rich, smoky coffee that's going to match it. Components that have dark roast, French roast, or Italian roast are going to give you a lot more of that syrupy texture. You're going to have a thicker, heavier body. You're going to have richer, deeper smoked flavors, and brown sugar is going to come out a lot more, less of a honey or a fruit type sugar. That doesn't mean that the French press is incapable of doing a great job with the Columbia Las Brisas or one of our Ethiopian coffees. Brilliant and fantastic. In fact, if you have natural coffee, if you're using any of the natural Ethiopians, when we get those back in, Harar is a classic. This is a great brewer for that. Really accentuates the texture. There's a very nice sweetness that comes in from that full immersion. It's a really great cup of coffee, and I suppose I'll just have to walk the little ways from here into my kitchen, compost my grounds, excuse me, and might have to do some more French pressing. Maybe that's just in the cards. Final note is we do have hot water here still, and we have our coffee grounds. It will continue to brew. And lately there's been some debate over how important it is to get all that out of there. When the coffee sits and it's not moving as much and it's already brewed, the rate that it pulls flavor out of those grounds is drastically reduced. So right now, if I don't disturb this, it's not going to pull out as much of the flavoring compound, and it's not going to go as deeply and as quickly into burnt matches, rubbing alcohol, penicillins, things of that nature. Then there are some people, and I've always been one, who believes press it and decant it. So have something else you would pour it into, serve it immediately into your mugs. If you have any type of vacuum seal container, those are great little dispensers. What I say is play with it. If you really like the way it looks to have your French press sitting on your breakfast table while you read the newspaper and fill the crossword puzzle and eat your Wheaties, by all means leave it there. Just make sure that before you run off to work that you empty this out, get the coffee out of there, because when coffee sits, gets your equipment all dirty, it's not going to taste good. So if you don't have a French press, we do have these on our website, because I believe that people should have them. batdorfcoffee.com. Check it out. Coupon code Watch and Learn with the number 10, Watch and Learn 10. We'll get you 10% off as a thank you for joining us today. French press whirling dervish really is classic. All right. Thank you so much. It's good to see you all back again. Thank you for indulging me in a little bit of time away. Much needed. Be back on Monday. Let's do this again.